Everybody, it's Love and Law, Charles and Tessie, episode 26. And today we have a special guest, Mr. Jock Hall, who I love and adore. Side note, he's our realtor too, who sold us our house that we're in now. But we want to talk to him today as a guest to talk about relationships and how do you know when it's time to go. Part of the conversation became because we had a guest that sent a message on our Facebook for the firm. And in that message, she said, basically, don't contact me. I didn't contact you. And a little further down the line, what had apparently had happened is her husband used her Facebook page to contact us about scheduling a consultation for the divorce. And she was like, wait, hold on. As the conversation continued, she's literally communicating back and forth saying, wait a minute, is he trying to get a divorce? He was stupid enough to use my Facebook page to contact the divorce attorney about a consultation. I'm not going to, something about she's not going to give him the freedom of a divorce. I'm going to make his life hell. And I'm repoing his car and selling his dog and putting all his clothes out, all of this stuff. Like he should have came to me and said something. And so that's what I wanted to talk about is how do you communicate with the other person when it's time to go? How do you know when you're ready to go? How do you communicate that with the other person? Because it seems like in that communication, her biggest frustration is the way that she found out that he was even considering a divorce because there was no conversation between the two of them. Coincidentally, Charles and I were talking to a friend last night, and he seemed very surprised that his relationship of years, like at least 15 years, had ended. And the conversation was just one night after dinner, I don't want to be here anymore. You need to move out. And I got a new place and I'm moving on. And so some people are caught off guard and blindsided because the party that's leaving has made full plans and you were not aware. So I just wanted to get your opinion on how do you communicate or what's the timeline. In my experience, I think most people think about a divorce or a breakup on average 2 to 3 years before they do it. And then they finally do it. But what's the way to do it?
You know, in my opinion, first of all, I think that it was kind of super unreasonable on his part to think that it made sense to even contact you guys through her Facebook. But it also shows the mindset and the mental space that he was in, you know, when he was willing to sort of risk it all to communicate through her social media platform to a divorce attorney. And I say that because I think, like you said, a lot of people are already so far gone well before they reach out to a divorce attorney. You know, they're talking about it with friends, they're talking about it with family, and I don't even think it's so much that they've made these elaborate plans outside of just trying to figure out how to get out. And you know, so I don't know in a marriage when is the right time to tell the other person I want out. You know, unless I guess both people are already kind of there at the same time, like this is not working. And that takes a different level of maturity, in my opinion, to be able to both say like, hey, this just isn't working. But if one person still wants to be in and you are the party that wants to be out, you know, is there a safe space to just say to the other person, hey, I don't want to do this anymore? I just don't know. I think there's a fallout that's going to happen one way or another. And I think culture really shapes people's mindsets about divorce. Mm-hmm. I know for me, I grew up in the Christian faith. And so it was stay no matter what. You know, and then you kind of learn this stay for the sake of the children. So you're battling through all of these obstacles. Meanwhile, the other person is on the other side, not really knowing the depths of how you're feeling. And I think also that's what kind of leads to a whole lot of other issues in the marriage. So, you know, I don't know that there's really this safe place and perfect time to just say, hey, this isn't working. It's time to go.
There was a lot said. I guess the first part, looking on her Facebook, that was just a bad decision on his part. But from what I've seen, what I've noticed, a lot of people will contemplate it for a long time. I've seen people that start the whole process couple months in, we decided to reconcile. So that's what's not to say that that might not have been a similar situation. Also, there are people that come talk to our office and it never amounts to anything. So I think her response was a little bit over the top. You guys should have tried to sit and have the conversation, but to jump to the conclusion, I'm selling this stuff, I'm getting rid of his things. Clearly, there may not have been a safe space or time if that was the response that you had. And for all that I know or we know, he may have tried to communicate that. But in just furthering his education and knowledge, okay, what is this process? How does this work? It could have just simply stopped there. Her response to me would have made me think there was never going to be a safe space. I understand you being comfortable and that stay for the children and all of those things. That's people with kids and that have been married for long periods of time, short period of time. Those are all things to think about. But I don't necessarily think that it's going to ever be perfect timing or a good time unless both parties have kind of came to that point at the same time that, look, this isn't working. We ended up being roommates. We're great friends, and it just, we need to part ways, but that's not the norm. Most of the time, it's some kind of contentious relationship, or there's some difference of opinions, or however you got there. But I don't know. That's my thoughts. I see you look a little different.
It's the attorney face.
Well, it's not an attorney face, but I understand when you think about it and contemplate it for a long time, whether that's a couple months, whether that's a couple years. And this is true of serious relationships, whether they're married or not. But to seek out a divorce attorney and to take those steps, and we haven't had a conversation. When you say her response was over the top to, I don't know if she meant it or if she was just saying it as a figure of speech. But if she put his clothes out and sold his car and sold his dog, then yes, that was an overreaction. But I do believe that she had the right, or I believe that she was valid in her feelings to be blindsided and to be upset that you're talking to a divorce attorney and you haven't even talked to me. If I'm the person that share a bed with you and lay with you and you have a vow to be committed to until death do us apart, then the conversation should start with me and not with Attorney Edwards. Have a conversation with me about where we are, what our issues are, and we can come. There's no way for us to come to a place that we're in agreement that this is not working if only one of us know that this is not working. I can be as wrong as rain, but if I don't know that you have an issue with something that I'm doing because you're not talking to me, then let's not tuck our tail and be, oh, well, there's no safe space for me to talk to. You married this person, you lay with this person, you're with this person. Have a conversation with the person. How about you get on my Facebook page and make an appointment with a counselor so that we can find a safe space to have the conversation that one of us is not happy. But to just say, well, I didn't feel safe telling you that I'm not happy, so I'm going to jump to a divorce. Are we going to counseling? Can we try counseling? Can we find somewhere to have a conversation so that we both are on the same page about the status of our relationship? We talked, like I said, we were talking to a friend last night that seems to think that it was out of the blue that his long-term relationship is coming to an end. And it was anything further than out of the blue. I've had a conversation with the other partner in the relationship several times over several years. It was very obvious that she was not happy. It was a lot of efforts and things made to get things back together. So when enough was enough, she literally came home from dinner and said, yeah, I'm out. I got a new spot. You need to get you one. And this is over as of today. And he's like, what? Where did that come from? When I'm talking to him, he's like, yeah. I said, so you didn't notice any changes? Yeah. I mean, she got quiet the last couple weeks. Well, what did you do? I matched her energy. How does that help? She's quiet. She's not saying anything. So you decide to be quiet and, well, you ain't talking to me, so I ain't talking to you. And after two or 3 weeks of not talking to each other, yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and move on. And it's over. Like, this is crazy. How long are we going to do this? If we've been doing this in this state for 4 years, you wake up one day and go, I don't want to do this another 4 years. And I've been contemplating, like, we've been married almost 18 years. We've been together 19 years. If things are bad between us for the last 10 years, and I've been thinking about leaving for the last 4 years. And then I wake up and say, Charles, I don't want to do this anymore. Everybody else will say, oh my gosh, it was so sudden. But you've been in a relationship having conversations with me about whether it works or not for 4 years. So if I leave tomorrow, it's not sudden. It's just that a decision has been made. And it's been a conversation, but I'm the only one need to make the decision about when I leave.
But your perspective, your reality may be different. We're talking about it, and I think we're still working on it. Mm-hmm. And then for you to abruptly say, all right, I'm ready, it still can be off-putting and rub me the wrong way, like, wow, I'm shocked. I thought we were working on this. I understand where you may think that you are, but that doesn't mean that I'm in the same place. And even though he contacted the attorney, I don't think he ever even had a consultation. So you may have done that out of a frustration, out of a bad night, an argument, and contact him. You know what? I'm not going to do that. But from my understanding, you never spoke to the attorney's office. So again, with you selling his things and putting his stuff out, that to me was a little much.
I agree.
And again, me and you can hop in the shower and you're like, wow, this water is just right. And I'm like, it's scalding hot. It doesn't make what you said right and doesn't make what I said wrong. It's just that we're in different places. So again, you may have had this conversation with me saying, you know what, I'm not happy and I haven't been happy for a while. Yeah, but we've been doing this for 4 years. I thought it was getting better. I thought we
don't have to agree on that though.
But
I'm saying you should have the conversation. You and I agree that we've been going at it you and I have been agreeing that we have been having the conversations for 4 years and trying to work on it. We don't have to agree when we're done working on it. So you might be surprised that I'm not willing to continue working on it. But that's not my point. My point is, if we're not having any arguments for 4 years and I just wake up and go, today I just decide I don't want to be here. That's what I'm talking about. What you're talking about is you're still willing to fight and you're shocked that I'm not. But what I'm talking about in those relationships where we are both living, I think it would feel 100% different. If I'm not even aware that we're having an issue, if you and I have not had any arguments about this green sofa, I hate this green sofa, blah, 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 blah. And I wake up tomorrow and just, hey, Haverty's are coming in, Restoration Hardware is coming in, they're taking out the couch. I hated this couch, it made me itchy. I've never even brought it to your attention that this couch, I'm allergic to it. I despise it. I have nightmares about it. And then to go out and make a decision to purchase another couch, spend $4,000 and replace the couch, and I've never even mentioned it to you. That is a big difference to me than me and you having a conversation about, oh, Charles is very short on this couch and have to have a booster seat under the pillow and all these other things about the couch. And then you come home and like, oh yeah, I guess she finally got tired of the damn couch and just decided to switch it. Some things I think you must have a conversation, or you should have a conversation about before you make those decisions. We don't have to agree on the couch, but I'm saying we at least had a conversation before. That woman seemed like there was never a conversation. She was unaware that he was even unhappy. And then our friend's situation, completely different. I know that they've been having a conversation and the arguments back and forth for years, and she made a unilateral decision that she's tired of having the same conversation year after year after year.
I was just kind of sitting here thinking, like, I kind of heard what you said, like, I can make this decision autonomously. I do think that, again, this is just coming from my background, right? The sanctity and the construct of marriage has led to a whole lot of us decisions. And I think the out of marriage or getting out of marriage is not talked about enough in culture. I think, and that's why it leads to these very outlandish behaviors, or, people who fall into a depression and can't come out of it, because there's no safety net in the reality that somebody may just wake up tomorrow and say, I don't want to do this shit no more. While it may hurt, and I think there's empathy to be, given to the other person, there is a strong reality in this life that somebody may just wake up and say, I don't want to do it anymore. does that make the other person bad? Does that make the marriage horrible? Maybe the marriage wasn't bad. Man, maybe the person, woke up one day and just realized, like, man, and I've got some very close friends literally just like that. They had what I perceived as the most picture perfect marriage. And the wife literally woke up one day and was just like, man, I gave up all my youth to be married to you, to submit to you, to have children with you. And I'm tired of this shit.
But to my point, regardless of all of those situations, to the person that wants to be in the marriage, whether they had the conversation, they didn't have the conversation, whether the person just woke up out the blue, I don't think it's going to feel any different to the person that's being told I don't want to be in this anymore if they want to. And what's the difference between the 9.5 and the 10? It still feels the same. So
But that's not my point about how it feels to you. But the point that I was trying to get to, and the question that I was asking is, how do you do it? Not how it feels to you. How do you do it? What's the best way to go about it when you have came to the decision that this is not it? Whether you wake up and go, wow, and I can imagine that must hurt, especially if you weren't expecting it and you didn't want it. I'm sure it hurts tremendously from all angles. Or you've been arguing for 15 years and now I'm leaving. And you kind of agree, not so mad, maybe you go. But I'm just saying, either way, when you come to the decision, whether it was overnight or over 4 years, what is the way to go about it? How should you go about it in a way that's still going to be respectful, peaceful, promote what can be a still workable relationship? Because if you have children, you're going to co-parent. You still got to be in that person's space. Even if your children are grown, you'll still be around each other forever when your children get married and graduate or fall ill or become parents, buy a house. There's going to be times and places. I'm divorced and remarried, of course. And so there are times that I see my ex-husband when our children have, we had a daughter that got married or whatever it is. 2 of them are getting ready to graduate this upcoming summer. I will probably see him. You're going to always be around each other. He's remarried. I'm remarried. We both have, children in our, we're still going to see each other regardless of how far we've moved. So what's the best way to end that relationship in a way that's going to be the path of least stress?
I don't think that there is a perfect way to end a relationship.
So what's some options?
Yeah, and that's why I was literally going to, my thought was, you got to survey your relationship to know what's the proper way or the best way to end it, and I think that because that is such a big bond between 2 people, I think that emotionally it's hard unless you've really thought this out well before, this time to end it, that you're going to really have the perfect way to end it, right? Like, there could be 2 very mature people who say, man, if there's ever a day that this isn't working, let's just be honest with each other and move on. Or you can get what most people have, this is till death do us part, and then somebody has made a decision in their head or, have fallen to being unhappy for a long period of time, and then they just, they're like, I don't want to do it anymore, and the other person is over there like, no, you vowed this to me, you're staying in this marriage, and kicking and screaming, they're getting out. Like, I think that everybody has to know their situation, in order to make the best decision on how to end it, because if there was only one way to do it, the one way in my mind would just be the one person tell the other person, it ain't working, we're done. And then you got murder cases because somebody might decide to take somebody out because they're going to leave the marriage or, what I mean, you do this. You've seen people who just woke up and ended their marriage, I assume, and what's been the response of the other person? How many clients have you had to file TPO orders on their spouse because the spouse has decided that they wanted to to go crazy because the other person is, getting out of the marriage, I mean, so I don't know if there's this perfect way to end it.
I agree. I don't think there's a perfect way. I think you need to know your person. Each situation is going to be different. There are people that are in abusive relationships. There isn't going to be a way that you can probably do it short of, I'm going to serve you these papers and I'm going to get the hell out of town. There's other situations where you guys have just grown apart and you can sit down and talk in maybe a public place and say, look, this isn't working.
Why public?
But sometimes public, you know, you don't want that person to show out. So I mean, I think there's no right or wrong answers. There's a lot of different answers, but each situation is different. With kids, without kids, there's going to be a lot to consider. So ultimately, at the end of the day, you need to know your person. And again, some are you're getting the papers, and that's how you find out. Some are, you know, you were able to have that conversation, and then there are others where, you know, it may be a totally different way that I haven't thought of, but I think it's going to vary. There's no perfect way. Yeah, there's always those one-offs that you wake up, you know, babe, I'm not feeling this. It's like, me too. I think we should just go ahead and separate, and they end up being friends. I mean, there's out of the many cases that we've handled, there's been a handful that were able to get uncontested and look, I want to make sure that, you know, they're taken care of and I'm just not feeling this anymore. And yes, I inherited this house, but I also feel like, you know, they need a portion of the house too because they put their time and money and energy into it too. Those are few and far between. Those aren't the ones that I've seen, but they do exist and they are out there. It's just normally that's not the norm. It's usually a lot of animosity, disagreement, and everything else that follows with that.
So allow me to introduce a concept. So Jacques was saying earlier that there's very difficult, options for those that want to get out, right? There was a concept that was introduced probably a year ago where people wanted to start doing contract terms for their marriage. So people say, okay, look, we don't really know how to get out of this till death do us part, very Judeo-Christian connection with marriage and like this vow. But what if we started doing contract terms where we reevaluate our marriage in 3 to 5 to 10 years, and within that time period, we can decide that there is almost like a sports team where there is a recontractual or a period in which you guys can construct your contract and decide whether or not you want to trade or if you want to move on, if you want to end it. But in the end of the contract, it's a clean break. That's kind of the way it works. It's a clean break where if by year 10 you say, all right, contract term is here, we both agree that this isn't really working, because we ended the contract on term, it's almost like not breaking a lease with your landlord. Hey, we're done. That's it.
I've never heard of it.
I've heard of it before.
Well, you can explain it because it sounds crazy. I don't agree with it.
No, it's
to me, bits and pieces of it sounds very similar to what a post-nut would do. And we're already married, and then we're already married, and now we are redefining what we're going to do now. We've been married for 10 years, and now you've decided you don't want to do this, or you're acting this way, but there's still a glimmer of hope that we can work out. So in order for us to remain married, these are the terms. And this is what we're going to have happen. What question?
Because when he introduced it, now we're explaining the answer to the question, and I don't think everybody...
No, what Daryl was talking about is the idea of a contract, entering a contract when you're already in a marriage and coming up with terms to, in lieu of filing for a divorce right now, let's enter into a contract that is 2 to 3 years. If we stay 2 to 3 years, these are the terms. If we stay 4 to 5 years, these are the terms. If we make it to 10 years, these are the terms. And if we're still married, I think after the 10 years, then I guess all of it would be off the table and they would still be married.
Well, so to kind of clear up what he was just saying, the concept is universal. It's let's take the institution of marriage and juxtapose it to driver's license, essentially. So everybody from this point forward, who gets married, or even people who are married, can now say or now have the option of entering into a 3 to 5 year contract in the marriage. And in 3 to 5 years, everybody comes back to the table and we're determining whether or not this is working. It's like my driver's license expires every 3 to 5 years. So does this marriage. So are we re-signing this contract?
Wow.
But I think that's genius. As crazy as it may sound, especially it's not pretty talk.
That's
especially
interesting.
on in the Christian faith or even other religions that really banner marriage the way that we see it. But if I go into this marriage knowing that in 3 years or in whatever period of time I have an out for a clean break, or I got to re-sign this contract like I do for my driver's license, it takes the pressure off of going forever in something that's not working. It's crazy as it sounds. I
think of that in a very different way. That's not where the thought took me. I had never heard of that. That's very interesting, but y'all know I really don't pay attention to social media too much. But I think it's interesting for a different reason. I thought, well, if we signed a 4-year lease on a relationship and it ends in 4 years, and then in 4 years we have to come back together to the table to decide if we're going to continue our lease, so to say. I think that people would behave so much better in a marriage. I think that I am going to not get comfortable and not stop trying, not stop communicating. I'll continue to date you and act like the girlfriend, because essentially I'm a forever fiance that's trying to get married. If I want to keep this relationship and not just get complacent, I'm going to always be trying to be the best version of myself in this relationship because I want the renewal. And if I know that you can just walk away in 4 years, if I have not been good, I think you're going to still have love and feelings. And so people are not going to say, in 4 years, we're going to trade you up and get something else. If you love each other and treat each other well, the bond, because here's the thing, the reality is getting married through the government in the way that the government does it doesn't make people stay. We know that. There's a high divorce rate. So getting married the traditional way doesn't ensure your marriage will last. And having a contract doesn't ensure your marriage is going to last. But it just puts people, that's a really interesting idea. It puts people in a position where you don't have to have all of everything on the table for life.
Yeah.
People are going to be committed to being good spouses.
And when the renewal is up, it's not as emotional, because if I'm really in love with this person, when I get to my renewal date, I hadn't even looked at the calendar to realize that my renewal date is coming up. I'm going. I get a notice in the mail, hey, your marriage is about to expire. Oh, shit, no problem. Let's sign this. We're in love. Like, we're moving on.
People that in the younger years, I'm trading up every 4 years. I just wanted to test you out. You just wanted to be married. So I'm going to give you a shot. You know what? I'm good with you. I done got to taste the vanilla. I'm going to trade you out. I'm getting a new shot. I'm getting chocolate this time. You know what? It doesn't matter what you do, because I know in a couple years, I'm not going to get that attached. But I know, you know what? I got a 4-year contract. I got a 4-year lease. And I know every 4 years I want a new car. It's going to have its pros and its cons. And I understand for those that are truly in it, I guess, for the marriage or the person, yeah, they'll do better than most. But I also know that, or from what I've seen, I think women mature a lot faster than men. It's going to be a lot of men that are going to be messing that up with, I'm going to trade up. Man, I shouldn't have got rid of that one. By then it's too late. I understand from the perspective of, okay, I think you will have people that are better behaved just because they want the option to renew the lease. But at the same time, they knew in the back of their head when they signed it, yeah, you just a 4-year filler.
I think I don't see that being an issue, because I don't believe that the people that you're talking about, the immature man that wants to just try out this lease, they're not going to enter into that contract. You're just going to do what you do now, shack up with somebody for 4 years. You're not going to enter into a contract that at the end of 4 years, I still have to split whatever we accumulated over 4 years. If they don't have that level of commitment, I don't think they're going to make it for a 4-year lease. I don't have to make any commitment.
Why would I put in the contract that we're not splitting anything either?
But that's no different than marriage. You can do that with a prenup. And though you can do that now, say we're not splitting anything now. That's called a prenup. You can do that. It wouldn't change anything. So people that wouldn't, you have people that have been divorced 4 or 5 times. We see them. So they do that and get a divorce in less than 2 or 3 years. So I don't think that this contract part of it would change anything. And even if you change it from 4 years to 5 years to 10 years and change the terms of the contract, I just think it's an interesting concept.
But it is.
You can still get a divorce in 4 years. You don't have to have a contract. The only thing is it would make the property rights. As an attorney, I'm just thinking about property rights and not losing everything and building everything and having to divide everything and do all that stuff. It would make for cleaner, easier breaks.
A lot of women that feel like, hey, the men don't help with the children as much as I would like. So does that because now that we have children, does that validate me saying, you know what, I'm good. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to do these an additional amount of years. I don't want to renew. Or the husband saying, you know what, I'm not having sex enough. I didn't sign up for this. How do you put it in a contract? I don't know, but these are going to be that checklist that you were discussing that, you know what, you didn't sweep the floor, you didn't do the laundry, I'm tired of your dirty ass socks, you don't take care of this and that, you're not taking care of my needs. You can, I guess, I don't know how you put it in the contract, but these are going to be the unwritten things that you're going to be getting measured against.
I didn't take it that far. People can get a divorce. I wouldn't put the terms of did you make breakfast as a term in the contract. For me, I would think if we were building out a contract to say what are we doing at the end of 4 years, if we get a divorce, for me, I would be thinking along the lines of a prenup. If we get a divorce in 4 years and there was adultery, it's zero. I keep you like those type of things. We're not split. I get the house. We bought a house and then we got married. If you commit adultery, you get this and I get that. If, going into the contract, whatever I put in my name is in my name. Whatever you put in your name is your name. It wouldn't be a checklist like your wife saying. Like that wouldn't be something that you can enforce because at the end of 4 years, I could have done everything on the list right and I still don't want to renew.
Right.
And I still don't want to
If
renew.
you wake up year 2 and say, you know what, I just don't want to do this.
Then I breached the contract, and you would get, if I decide to leave the contract before the 4 years is up, that's a clause that needs to be in there. If I breach the contract and I get a divorce or I leave the relationship before the 4 years is up, then you get to keep the house, or I'm going to pay you, X amount of dollars or this in alimony or whatever the term would be. But those would be the type of terms that you're putting in the contract. If somebody leaves early, if somebody commits adultery, if somebody is unemployed, if somebody has a substance abuse, like issues that you can really measure.
I feel like it can be a lot more simple. All the laws of the land can remain just like they are right now. The only thing that, in my mind, the way this was being proposed was that every 3 or 5 years, you have to go into the government municipal building or whatever. You get it in the mail, just like you do your driver's license, and you literally just go to renew. The start of this conversation was all about communication. I believe that if you have this contract that expires, and you have to physically go and re-sign your name to it, that gives the opportunity for communication right there. Because if Charles is not feeling the marriage, but he's scared to tell you he's not feeling the marriage, well, within 3 years, he's got something coming where he's got to make a decision as a human, as a man, to re-sign his name. So if he's showing hesitancy or he's not re-signing, I think that's when the opportunity for the ball really to get rolling starts there. I think all the same, ordinances and laws can stay just like they are, whether they're in the first 3 years was infidelity or whatever the case may be. All that stuff can be on the table for a judge and attorneys to fight.
Then it makes what you're talking about 100% moot to me.
Okay.
Because if all we're doing all this for is to avoid you having to come to me and have a conversation about you want to get out of a relationship, that to me seems very simple-minded. I'm going to go through all of this contract and renewing our marriage every 4 years just to avoid you having to have a conversation with your spouse that the relationship is not working. That doesn't seem logical to me. It's a lot of work to avoid some people's fear of having a conversation about when they're ready to leave. if I got to go through the divorce anyway, at the end of the expiration of the contract, I still got to go through the divorce and go through all of these terms and renegotiate this every 4 years possibly. That seems like a lot of work and just counterproductive to go through all of that just so simply at the end of 4 years. Now I don't have to say this isn't working. Let's go ahead and go forward with the divorce. What are we waiting 4 years for if that's all it takes? We can do this in 2.
But a prenup, essentially, I mean, you do prenups, right?
A prenup?
Yes, a prenup, because you brought up postnup. But in a prenup, you don't hit every single thing that might happen in a marriage.
You wouldn't in my mind, you wouldn't do it either way. Postnup, prenup, because in the postnup and the prenup, it is a contract. And so we're not talking about how many times you wash the dishes or whether or not you're getting the sex that you want and all of that. Right. But what we're talking about is if the marriage exceeds 5 years, then you will get this amount of money as alimony. If the marriage exceeds this, then we're going to do this thing. There's always triggers for this. If there's infidelity, you will or will not have this or that. In a prenup, I came into the marriage with this pillow. I don't care if we're married 2 years or 25 years. We agree that this pillow, regardless of what you do to this pillow, will never be on the table. That's the majority of it. I'm coming into it with $2 million in the bank. We agree that this $2 million will never be commingled. This money sits aside, and what Jock and I earn together going forward in this account is all we're ever going to discuss if we get a divorce. But if Jock cheat on me, you understand that you don't get even access to none of it. You have no claim to the house. I bought this house a year ago. We're going to live in it for 10 years. And so the 10 years that we live together would be marital property, and we can divide that part of it. But if you cheat, you agree you don't get any part of this house and you walk away. Those are the type of things that you put in a prenup. Has nothing to do with who cook eggs and who gets sex and if you like me and that type of stuff. It's truly contractual things that, yes or no, I can prove that you committed infidelity. And if I can prove it, you agree that I get 100% of the house because the law says we're going to split it 50-50 as a starting place. That's what you put in the prenup. But you're saying at the end of 4 years, I don't have to have a conversation and say, Jock, I'm not really feeling this. I just don't want to renew it. So now let's go through the whole process of a regular divorce anyway.
So you don't even see any value then
None.
in the contractual idea. But the point that I'm making is so the prenup has all those, those barriers or boundaries or whatever you want to call it. That's separate from what we started talking about. The issue is not about who cheated or who should or shouldn't get anything. Our issue is as new. What our topic is just as nuanced as I don't want to do it no more. Mm-hmm. So
but
forget the house.
The conversation went off track to talk about a way to not do it is to have a contract that your relationship automatically expires. Well, look, but in reality, what you're saying is it doesn't expire. I still got to go
through the divorce
and get a divorce. And I didn't understand that to be the case. If I still got to go through the court to get a divorce, then why am I signing a contract just to prevent having a conversation when I'm ready to end the relationship?
So how else would you end the relationship? Even if this whole concept of it expires in 3 years was a thing and you don't renew it, then that's a divorce, right? Or
no, you would still, according to what you said, I still got to go file for a divorce and let the judge decide anyway.
So let me restate my position. Mm-hmm. What I'm saying is in 3 years, and I understand why you said it's just to avoid the conversation. Well, most people punk out anyway and just sit in a marriage for 30 years, miserable, sleeping in separate rooms.
But that's a different conversation.
Right, I'm agreeing. I'm just saying if the contract expires, would we still call that a divorce?
No, because you said a judge still have to decide. If a judge got to decide, then I still got to go through the government.
Off. You say no, I don't want to. Let's just keep it simple. 3 years, I'm going to renew my license. I'm going to my marriage license. I don't want to do this anymore. So at that 3 years, we can just get a judge to sign it. We don't have to go through all the rigmarole. It's done. Does that change your?
But how do we get there? We couldn't. Somebody has to be a mediator when we don't recontract our marriage. Because what if we have children? So you're saying the way to combat that is at the beginning of it is like if we have children, this. If
it just sounds like there's too many holes.
There are too many holes. That's why I said
there's too many.
There are.
That, and that, the only thing, like you saying. Okay, now we're at 3 years.
Let's just call it a quit.
We're just calling it quits.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Every 3 years, you know what? We cut past the introducing this new idea. When we get married, look, every 3 years we need to revisit whether or not we want to stay
We want
married.
to stay married.
And on our every three, the 3, the 6, the 9, the 12, you still want to be married?
And I guess you can do that without doing the whole contract thing.
Yeah,
you just go into it with that.
I don't really like you that much anymore,
Yeah.
so we gonna part.
I'm sure a man thought of this somewhere. Listen, this it's just so simple. Let's talk. I don't need to wait 3 years. If I'm not happy, I'm not waiting 3 years. I can tell you now. And if I'm not happy in 6 months, I can tell you now. And at 3 years, I don't want anxiety building up because in 2 months, we got to have this conversation about whether we stand or not stand. If you're not coming to me and telling me you're unhappy and I'm not picking up any cues and we're not doing anything, then we just go on living life, loving, and doing what we're doing. And you have to, at the end of the day, how do you know when it's time to break up, or how do you do it? You have to understand who you're marrying. And if you are mature and grown enough to take a spouse and start a family and be married to somebody, my goodness, be adult enough to have a conversation or initiate a conversation and figure out a way that's going to work for you. Like you said, if it's an abusive relationship and you truly don't feel like it's a safe thing to say that at home, then you need to start preparing an escape. How do I do that? You pack a bag and you leave and you file the papers. Whatever works. I'm just saying, as an adult, you have to figure out how to communicate with the other person that you don't want to be in a relationship. If it's safety, it may need to be by surprise. If safety is not a concern, then you need to have the conversation, whether you do it with a counselor present, with a priest present, with a friend, a neighbor, me and you over a glass of wine on a walk or something. Like, have the conversation that either I'm not happy and we need to fix it, or I'm not happy and I want a divorce. Either way, at the end of the day, just like a fingerprint, it's going to be so unique to that couple, how I communicate and how you best communicate. If you're the type of person that's going to wild out and burn all my clothes, sell my dog, had a repo man come get my truck and all that, you know who you got. Then you need to act accordingly. They're not surprised. If that woman did all that, who said that man is not surprised that that woman act that way. We're all just shocked that you chose to use her Facebook page to do that, knowing who you're married to.
Foolish.
But if you know she gonna be like that,
You might have been trying to find out the standards. You might have been figuring out what I could do before I get away. And that might have been the reason why I was going, can I leave? What can I leave? And can this happen? Either way, you need to know your person, and you need to be adult enough to have the conversations. If you like the conversation for today, be sure to like, subscribe, tune in. We appreciate it. If you have any questions, feel free to post, and we'll definitely try to respond if there's a topic that you want to talk about. Thank you for watching. God bless.
Amen.